Oh, who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Wolves Fancast. It's me, Rich Hobbs. I've got Ali, Greg, and Tom joining me for a jam-packed midweek show. To be honest, I thought we were just going to have to give a bit of a run-over of the El Crapico against West Ham and talk about, I guess, the next El Crapico against Everton up the weekend. But we've got loads of transfer stuff to get through. As I was saying to the guys before we started recording, I did all my notes in terms of, will Larsen stay? Will he go? But Tom, it looks like, fingers and toes crossed, but Larsen's staying.
Yeah, it looks that way. So Newcastle have pretty much got the deal over the line for the German striker. So just shows how quick you can actually do a transfer if you put your mind to it. So if Jeff's watching, you can take a bit of note of that one. But yeah, it ultimately is good for us, isn't it? So fingers crossed. I think that puts an end to that. And although it sounds like he probably quite wanted the move without kicking up too much of a fuss, at least we've got him until January and hopefully slightly beyond that as well.
Yeah, I think there was a point probably this morning when I don't think we're consigned to losing him, but I think the narrative had shifted to actually I would quite like him. I would quite like to get out of here if I can do. I guess for me, a lot of it kind of comes down to how well Strand Larsen's come across in the last week throughout all of this, because it is tricky for players, right? When you've got all of this and the particularly when it's like a domino effect with Newcastle at the moment. And for the week for Strand Larsen to have all of this speculation around him, to still, frankly, do his job, I think that takes a lot to be commended, Greg.
Yeah, although I do also think it says a lot more about modern footballers these days and the standards that they hold themselves to. The sign of something interesting, they start blacking out their Instagram profiles and going on strike. So you're right. It is nice to see someone being professional for a change and actually, like you say, doing what they're paid to do and turning up and doing a job and acting professionally. Whereas, as you say, otherwise you can see some really poor examples more recently. So, yeah, it was good for us. I think he's staying. Part of me wonders if there's a Cunha-style gentleman's agreement for late, next season or even in January potentially. But it does look like he's staying, and we definitely do need him, particularly at the moment. So he did make a big difference in El Crapico, as I'm going to borrow your phrase there, Rich. And he made a big difference when he came on and does look like a goal threat, which is something we are desperately short of at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say it was something I know, Ali, you muted earlier in terms of keep him and have a clause in the contract that says, look, just give us 6 months or 4 months or whatever. I'm curious now because I think a lot of the Strand Larsen interest has been very much dictated around Newcastle, and I'm be interested to sort of see if that has a trickle-on effect, maybe this window or next window if he keeps playing well and keep scoring, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the initial link to Newcastle came about out of the blue, didn't it? When it was reported about a month ago. He wasn't somebody who you'd naturally link to Newcastle or anyone else, and he'd only signed permanently a couple of months ago. So when it first sort of broke, you thought, where's that come from? And it sounded like he was on a list of a number of other strikers that Newcastle were after. They were really going after Visser and X number of others. And obviously it then gathered pace in the last couple of weeks, and you thought, actually, there's something in this. And as I said, this morning in the context of you're reading the report saying, well, he's politely asked to go. Newcastle are going to make another bid and Wolves are reportedly going to remain steadfast. Then is the way out of this for us the sort of the best worst case scenario is you get him signed up for another year and say, look, we'll do that on the proviso. But next summer, if a Champions League club or whatever comes in for you, and they pay a certain price, we'll let you go. And as we know, Wolves have been we've been prepared to do that for other players who haven't acted as professionally as Larsen has. So I thought that might be something that either has gone on or might go on behind closed doors. But yeah, it does seem that now that more than likely he'll be staying. Newcastle have moved on to a different target and are still looking at Visser, but aren't looking at Larsen. And he hasn't been sort of linked with anyone else. I hadn't really thought about it of who else out there might look at him, but it at least feels like for another 6 to 12 months, we've got our number 9, which is a relief when we haven't got anyone else really who you could rely on.
Well, I was going to say, linking it back to the West Ham game, the fear of us having to start playing up front for 15 games up until January was a frankly terrifying thought.
Just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he did.
Saw that in the first half. Sorry, Ali, go on, mate.
Yeah, it did. And trying to then rely on Kalajic sort of as a backup, we just can't trust him, can we?
No. There's, I think it's. So I'm just seeing some fun YouTube comments come through. I will bring in a second, but I think it's nice just to see Wolves ultimately keep their man, and they seem very, I don't know, very very dogged in the fact that they're going, no, he isn't for sale, and whereas I think you're right, like they kind of set a benchmark with Cunha and sort of said, look, we will sell him for 62.5 million or whatever it was. And similar with Aït-Nouri, they kind of set their asking price, but they really didn't seem to necessarily have one in the same way with Strand Larsen. Maybe it's because they haven't kind of quite worked out what quantifiable number there was for him this late stage. But the thing that sort of sticks out for me, and it's not really Wolves-related, but how much of a shit show in Newcastle in sort of negotiation-wise? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, as we sort of joke about Jeff Shee as not being good at transfers, but we do get our players over the line. Like, we don't drop. They have dropped the ball so many times, and I mean, I'll be honest, I know very little about Nick Waltmader, we'll go for. He had a good season last season at Stuttgart. It could be a great signing for them, but the fact that it has come so out of the blue doesn't exactly strike me as great from a club a club looking to establish themselves in the Champions League, and the irony of them kind of, I wouldn't say lowballing, but putting in a relatively low offer for a striker and then putting in another slightly higher low offer. There's not very similar to a situation that's happening in their own house, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think
It's a real strange one. The one thing I took from it is he must have been quite far down the list. I think he's saying it seems like they had about, I don't know, 5 or 6 other players maybe higher than him. It was a bit strange, and as good as he is, Larsen, he's a good player. I definitely don't think he's what Newcastle needed really. I think the thing with this one is he was worth way more to us than he was to Newcastle. In theory, Newcastle is probably worth, I don't know, about 40 million. But to us, he's probably worth about 70. So I think the difference, that's what it was. To us, he was worth way more than what he should have been worth in theory, just because it was so late in the window. I think most Wolves fans I've spoke to said that if they were offering this sort of money at the start of the window, you'd have probably sold him. But, like you say, Newcastle left it so late, that they've shot themselves in the foot in getting decent players, not great players, but, decent enough players, because they haven't acted fast enough or wise enough earlier in the window. So it's their own doing, really.
Yeah, I know it's kind of been a funny old transfer window as a whole for a lot of teams with kind of like the PSR restrictions. But you're right, it just seems like they've got so many players down the list, and Strand Larsen's not kind of the same makeup of someone like Alexander Isak. The only thing that I think they wanted Larsen for is he would hit the ground running for Newcastle. That is the only kind of reason that they literally looked down like who might be available, who can get double figures for us, because they're good at creating chances. And Larsen is a good goal scorer. Like he's got his flaws in his game, but he's actually he's really good at scoring goals. And we're just kind of not always very good at creating them, which doesn't really help him. So I'm just chuffed he's going to stay, and I kind of hope it will lift the mood around Wolves as well. In terms of actually, like we have shipped off a couple of players with with Aït-Nouri and Cunha, and I don't think we'd have. I think this team would have really struggled. Not that we're not already struggling, but would have really been hampered, Greg, if we saw like another key player, whether it was Gomez or whoever. I think it would have been really difficult for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to Newcastle, I think they probably weren't anticipating Isak to go on strike. I don't think that was part of their plan, and I think that's completely thrown them. And they, as you could see in their game against Liverpool, they missed having a striker. I know they obviously had a man sent off as well, which didn't help, but you could see they were missing that focal point. And as you said, Strand Larsen has got a decent goal return, particularly considering he's not a penalty taker as well. So there was no penalty goals last season as part of his number. So I mean, from that perspective there, but yeah, we've seen a lot. It's not just obviously it's not just Cunha and Aït-Nouri. Obviously they were the big ones, but if we look at the sheer volume of players that have gone, we've obviously got Fabio's on his way, or seen him on the plane. You've got Guedes, you've got all the way through Tommy Doyle. The list, if you look at the list, Sarabia, it's we've lost a squad of players. You could even argue the sheer volume. So, and we're leaving it late to bring bodies in, so we're not in a position now to lose any more headcount, particularly like you say, Rich, a first team player. So yeah, it was something we had to do. We really had to do, was to keep hold of this.
Yeah, I mean, something that I think is really easy to forget is no matter how big a shit show it feels Wolves can be, there are other teams who are genuinely worse ran than Wolves.
Have a look at West Ham. Just have a look at West Ham. Look at the absolute chaos there. You're looking at, players fighting. I was there watching Bowen trying to jump over not a very concerted effort, I hasten to add, but a bit of a jump over the hoardings towards the fans and stuff like that. Everton are an interesting one. They're still like, you always feel like they're one bad result away from a bit of a meltdown. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of clubs in our situation. We're certainly not on our own in this space at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, talking about West Ham, I mean, it was a bit of a weird game, in all honesty, because it was two teams who were desperate in a way 2 games into the season to get something to grasp onto. And Wolves have come out the other side of it, and it does genuinely feel like there has been a bit of an uplift at Wolves with kind of some of the, we've got a couple of transfer bits to get into, but knowing actually, it's going to sound really fucking pathetic when I say, knowing we can win a game of football against the Premier League team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys were there, but it was a bloody awful first half. It had a real pre-season vibe to it. The intensity and the tempo was found wanting very much. And that was reflected, we got 1 goal up, but didn't really look comfortable. They didn't look like doing a lot. And to be honest, it was only when they went ahead and we all of a sudden had a bit of a change of formation and tempo that all of a sudden then they started to panic. And once we'd scored the equaliser, there was only one team that was going to win the game. But again, you can just see teams that are players that aren't confident, players that are not in a good form, not in a good structure, and that was reflected. I mean, a couple of the players like Agbadu don't look anywhere near the same player. Looking at the start, and again, it's limited sample, I acknowledge, but he does not look the same player that finished last season. I don't know what you guys think of that. I know I'm calling one out, and there's plenty of others that sit in that.
No, he really hasn't. No, I agree. He really hasn't. Yeah, it's not even pushed on. He's just not met the levels he played at last season. It's kind of simple as. And considering the players around him haven't changed, it's hard to kind of put your finger on what's not quite working for him at the moment.
No, and there's a lot of. I mean, Greg, what you're saying there about the first half. There's so many just slot passes, sort of 5 yards going out of play, and the first half there it was two teams who just a complete inability to keep the ball. And it was sort of painful to watch, which neither of these teams are good enough to hurt each other. Second half, it felt like it improved. But yeah, Agbadu is a really strange one because it felt like last season he made such an impact. It looked like, he has that aura of somebody, it looks easy to him. And he was bullying strikers off the ball. And you thought this guy's outside of the top 6 maybe or top 4, he's as good as there's out there, and we found a real gem here. And obviously over pre-season, you can kind of forgive pre-season. He probably is, he's not really giving it his all. It's just to get the minutes in the bank and go ahead to the start of the season. But then it's kind of it's carried on, and these mistakes are just he fires balls forward, and I accept he's putting them in with a bit of zip because you don't want to get intercepted, but he. Half the time go straight through to the goalie or they go straight out of play, and you think, God, it just doesn't look like the same player we signed. And defensively, he just looks like there's a bit of a rick in him, and he's not getting in front of strikers and winning the ball back. There were glimpses I thought against West Ham where he was a bit better, but it's very hard to put your finger on what has gone on. Is it something that's gone on behind the scenes we don't know about? Is he frustrated that he's joined the club and was told that we'd be looking to strengthen and get better, and he's seen so many different players leave and he's got a bit disillusioned with it? I thought it was really interesting that, I don't know if you picked this up at the start of the City game and also the West Ham game, when they sort of do their pre-match huddle, he is the one sort of screaming at everyone. It's not, it wasn't Totti, it wasn't Hwang. Agbadu was sort of leading it. And I thought that was interesting because he hasn't been mooted as a potential captain really by anyone with sources inside the club. He's not been given the armband at any point. No. But then when they're doing this sort of huddle that they do, he's the one who seems to be barking at people. And it just, to me, that just seemed a bit peculiar. But if he's doing that, is that not what the captain would be doing? I just don't know. You can speculate. He just hasn't been the Agbadu we signed last season. And frankly, we need him to be, because we're not blessed with enough defenders of his level. We still, we're conceding 2 goals a game. Well, we got away with it against Bournemouth. We're conceding goals every game. We never look like keeping a clean sheet. To have any chance of keeping clean sheets, he has to be playing well.
Yeah. No, it's simple as that. And I say the only thing I can think of is maybe, as you sort of said, with maybe some of the passing, is that he's almost trying to be too much, that he knows the team's maybe weaker and he's trying to just do that extra bit, rather than just kind of sticking to the basics, doing what you're good at and what kind of really set you apart last season. And it's just not quite hit the ground running in the same way. It might be just one of those where after the international break he's just back to being how he was, and it's just taken a couple of games to find his rhythm again. Because we're not good enough to have our better players not firing on all cylinders, unfortunately. I was just for I was going to say little Rodrigo scoring. Feels quite patronising when I call him that, but I always he just looks so excited when he scores though and contributes. I love it.
Yeah, he's a real energy. He's a real bundle, and he's got all the enthusiasm. And he's a player you want to do well. Do you know what I mean? You can see he's got his heart and soul in it, and he's totally invested. And he does have a knack, actually, for someone who tends to play further back, of scoring. which is nice. You know, you do want to try and get the goal spread around. So, you know, it was a good finish, good follow up. I'm not going to talk about the penalty. I'm going to leave that to one side. Yeah, it was. Although we could diverse to the Cunha penalty yesterday if we want to entertain ourselves and really have some fun. But no, it was good. But again, it was symptomatic of the team at the moment. The only way I felt we were going to score was off a corner or some kind of like that kind of goal. I didn't see us scoring a very well structured goal, something that was a bit scrappy, which ultimately it was. But yeah, I'm pleased for him. I think I have been quite vocal in the group and stuff that I think he's a much better option than Hoover, and I stand by that. I think he offers more than he does, certainly in terms of passing and ball control. I don't think he's the ultimate answer, but I think he's a better option at the moment.
Yeah, I think I'm curious to see how it plays out for him long term, because he can sort of fill in a couple of different positions, none of which are necessarily the formation that we play. And I don't know whether that's going to like be his undoing long term, and like he basically just has to commit to playing wing back, which I think he does a good job at. And like his flaws aren't so bad that they outweigh his strengths. That he brings you a lot of pace. He brings you the width, and I think he can probably learn the rest of his game. And you say we missed penalty by Hwang. I think the overriding consensus of literally everybody I've spoken to and in our group chat, like, yeah, he's going to miss. And it's so bad, isn't it, when you've got a penalty taking, like, yeah, he's gonna scuff this. And it wasn't an awful penalty; he just felt that he was never going to score, though. Sadly,
Has he scored one? I think he might have scored one for us, but he must have taken about 4 or 5. It's pretty embarrassing, really. I don't know why he's standing over the ball. Yeah, no one thought he was going to score. Just quickly looping back to Rodrigo briefly, I think ultimately his downfall is just going to be his size. While Pereira's in charge, I just can't see him getting in. If you look at the profile of players we've signed since Pereira's been in, they're all just monsters. They're all huge. If you look at like that, I'm sure we'll come on to it. Is it Krejci? I think his name is. He's massive. The striker we're linked to, I think, 6'7". Even like going back into January with Agbadu, Manetzi, Giga, the Jackson. You know, he's rapid, but he's also pretty built. They're all just beasts, and I just think, unfortunately, as much as we all like him, I think Roger much might fall foul of that, and I think he'll have to just play the part of a bit part player at least, while Pereira's in charge. And you know, I appreciate we've got Andre in the middle, but I mean he's in a league of his own in regard to that. I'm more than happy to accept the fact he's not as physical as the rest of it, because he's head and shoulders of almost anything we've got. So
you are right. It's like Zhao. I was going to say Gomez and Andre, almost like your exception. Like we have to have 8 outfield players who are 6 foot plus just to have those two at 5'8", 5'9", and whether it works or not, we'll find out. But yeah, I think he's just going to be. I think you're right. His size and like I also think he's going to be someone even when he's like 27, 28. He's going to still kind of feel like, oh, he's just breaking through. Like no matter what team he's at, whether it's at Wolves or most likely Sporting Lisbon in 4 years' time. Well, it's the way it goes.
He's got everything about him in terms of he's got pace. He's a wing. He can play wing back. He can play on the wing. He's Portuguese. Everything about him says he should play for us and he should be a success. But on the flip side, you just have that feeling of him that he's always just going to be a backup or someone who comes on. And I think just in Pereira's system, as Tom said, how he likes to play, the players he likes to play, I just think he's always going to be a backup for someone. He's always either going to be a backup left wing back, the backup right wing back. He clearly doesn't fancy him further forward. It's weird because he should, when you think about what position he plays, he should fit this system, but he just doesn't. He also just doesn't. Yeah. And I think it probably is. It's just his size. There were a couple of runs where he just, you can see he's trying his heart how you want him to succeed, but he can be playing against a team. He just looks like he can get bullied off it, and they stick a ball up to the back post and put Souček on him, and he just hasn't got it. There's just no. He just can't. He's just not going to be able to defend that. He can't do that, and you just sort of feel, it's just not. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong in that we're saying
it's such a David Moyes tactic. I love it in the sense it's like, what's going to be the easiest way for us to just get a goal? Just stick the really tall player on the shortest player on the pitch, and just get that. Just get the physical advantage, and we'll be fine. And I mean, he's what 22, I think, Gomez. 22. So I guess he's probably got like another 18 months or so, 2 years to sort of see actually how he progresses physically, for want of a better term. You say like actually, because he still feels like he's a youngster, and that's probably a little bit unfair. But I can't ever see him being able to push to be number one in any position at Wolves. And it's a real shame to say that because I really like him. But I get the feeling almost like Dendoncker in the same way. Like, I don't think with his attributes, Dendoncker would ever be like a first choice centre midfielder at any club, just because his ceiling's quite low in that kind of regards. And his floor's sort of, there's not much of a gap. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, you're right, Tom. I was going to say to sort of link it back because Wolves did actually. We've Larsen looks like he's staying. A couple of other transfers is Ladislav Krejci signed $6 million loan with a £20 million option from Girona. I mean, I hope it works. we need something. I'm curious to see where he's going to fit into this back three though. Because I've been fairly critical of Matt Doherty not being, he's definitely not a long-term option, is he? But now they've made Toti Gomez captain, he kind of has to start. Agbadou, rocky start to the season, but still, primary. Where do we see the big lad fitting in then?
It's such a weird. It's so peculiar to spend for Wolves to spend this type of money, because this has been, we've kind of shopped in the lower bracket, and then to and I'm not necessarily against us having another defender, but does he move Agbadou out to the right of a three? But that doesn't seem to fit with Pereira sort of wanting his two sort of outside centre backs to be sort of hybrid wing backs, and I just don't think Agbadou is a hybrid wing back. I don't necessarily think Doherty's the long-term solution. Mosquera's played at right back, played at centre-back. He feels like he could be a solution to that when he gets properly fit. It's a really peculiar one that to have brought this guy in, and I hope he's great. And it's always good to bring in a player who's a good backup, but it feels really peculiar in circumstances where you've made Totti captain, and so that presumably means he will play. But he's filling a position that we're spending $6 million on a loan, which is a ridiculously high loan fee, and presumably the option or the obligation to buy is either an option that will definitely happen or an obligation, and that's another 20 million we're spending on him. So they've obviously seen something, but like you, I'm slightly confused as to what that is.
Yeah, for me, the option would be, I don't know if you guys remember the first couple of games Agbadou played. He played on the left-hand side. I think it was the cup match. I can't remember if it was Blackburn or Bristol, which one of those it was. But he didn't look particularly comfortable there. He looks more happier in the centre of a three. So I think that would be an issue for Agbadou. And like you say, for me at the moment, if you're looking to bring a player in, it would be to replace Totti or Doherty. But like you say, Ali, if he's made Totti captain, that kind of says that he's the one that's starting every week, unless he pivots on the captain thing. Bearing in mind, there was a variety of captains in pre-season. Perhaps perhaps that's our way of avoiding the captain's jinx if we just rotate the captaincy around then no one's captain for the season, so we don't necessarily have to sell him. But for me, based on the start of the season, if I had to drop one of the three centre halves, Totti would be the first out of those three, based on the games to date. But if he's captain, then yeah, that's a problem. So I think we could probably have found other positions we could have purchased first. But like you say, Ali, if they've seen something and there's a plan there, then hopefully we'll see that manifest itself. But it's going to be an interesting one. What are your thoughts, Tom?
I'm pretty sure he's going to play in the centre, and I think he'll shift Agba to the right. Just a few things. I mean, like I touched on there. Yeah, he likes his wider men to be hybrid wing backs, but Krejci is much less of a hybrid wing back than Agba is, because he's not got the pace. Agba is pretty rapid. And I think that's where Agba played when he was in France. I think he played on the right side of a three as well. And it's, for me, it seems like maybe I'd say our weakest position, probably not, as the season started, because I actually think the other two have been worse than Doherty, believe it or not. But I think that's the area that he wants to look to improve. And I think he probably can't quite trust Mosquera yet. So I think that's what I think he'll do. Whether he will or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think that's maybe where he played for Girona as well, in the middle of a three, I think. But who knows? I'm sure Pereira's got a trick up his sleeve. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's not the first time. Max Kilman played as a left-footed, right-sided defender. We had an interesting comment on YouTube sort of saying, potentially a four at the back with moving Totti to left back. I don't quite agree with Doc at right back. I think that's again a bit of a disaster waiting to happen personally. It's like, it just feels like it's an odd move, and I can't quite work on what they're hedging their bets on. Are they, thinking if this guy actually, for 6 million, if he's a good backup, great. If he pushes Gomez out, then for 26 million, it's worth it. But then why make him captain when you could just make João Gomez captain, who's going to start every game? I was a bit confused with the Gomez captaincy thing anyway, if I'm being honest, just because if you can't, I just go effectively go off depth. Gomez is probably in the bottom half of your better players in the first 11. And I don't massively dislike Totti, but it's kind of just that's your next. We've brought new wing backs in, so we're not going to improve on them anytime soon. Ultimately, the next two positions we need to improve are your right centre half and left centre half. And it's kind of down to one of them. Doherty ain't getting any younger. It feels a bit of an odd one.
I think it's true, because I'm actually forever berating Wolves for not having backups, and this could be a genius move if Totti breaks his leg on Saturday, then we wouldn't have had a left centre back. We haven't got somebody who's left-footed and plays that position. So, and that was and that would be then a position we need. It just feels like this is a big signing for somebody who is competing with a position that's currently occupied. But then, as I say, the flip side is I'm, last summer critical for, you've got Aït-Nouri, you've got Bueno as a backup, and you say, oh well, we don't need the backup, let them get rid of them, and we're forever doing that. And you think, don't do that, because you know what will happen. If you lose that player, you've got no one, and no other club does that. They have 2 players roughly for every position. It's only Wolves who think they've been able to get away with it. So maybe, so on that logic, if Totti does get an injury, or he gets an injury, you've got cover. You've got someone who is left-footed, because it always feels unnatural putting Agbadu or Bueno or Doherty out on the left of a 3. It doesn't feel as natural because they're not left-footed. So it kind of could make sense in that regard, but it just feels like a lot to commit to that particular position when there are so many other glaring holes.
But it's so unlike Wolves, isn't it?
I just wonder, perhaps he's looking. We talked a bit earlier about Agbadou's interest in passing, shall we say? And I wonder if he's looking for someone with better ball distribution out of the back. So we're still looking for a similar. And I wonder if he's looking for, if we go back to the Nuno, we got the Connor Cody diagonal out to the wing backs. Perhaps that's particularly now Chachua is a bit lively, shall we say? He's quick. Perhaps he's looking for someone with a better ball distribution out of the back line, and perhaps he doesn't see a decent enough passer out of the three that are there at the moment. That could be it. I
think he is that sort of, from what you read, he is that classic sort of ball playing centre half. I think his strengths are actually on the ball rather than defensively. If you look at most of the metrics, so I think you're probably right there, Greg. I think there might be something in that.
He started as a midfielder. I think he's only played defence the last 3 or 4 seasons, so probably there's an angle there.
I was moving on back onto strikers. I guess firstly, Fabio Silva finally looks like he's no longer a Wolves player and has somehow secured a move to not Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund. I mean, he's got some agent, Annie.
Yeah.
I don't know. This could be what fulfills his potential. I don't know.
He's had a serious.
Go on, Greg. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, for his age, he's got a serious list of clubs going on, hasn't he? Let's be honest. Yeah. He's played in some countries and had some. So yeah, like you say, whoever's managed to blag him that, fair play to them. Perhaps there is a player there. I know I've spoken to a lot of fans, and there's, when I was in the South Bank on that, we were talking about Fabio, and there's people, Wolf fans out there that believe that he's, that he would succeed and ultimately we get there. I just think his time at Wolves that has gone. Unfortunately, he came in to play as understudy to Raul. That didn't work. Raul got injured and he played, and it's unravelled from there. And he needs a fresh start. But yeah, it's another serious move for him. So good luck to the guy. Good luck to him. Maybe we can get a sell-on fee or something on it.
Yeah, I don't know what's more impressive. Like his agent's got him a move to Dortmund, or we've got 25 million for him. Is that just? I mean, fair play. So we're quite critical of them, and we have been this summer. But they've stuck to their guns because people were offering 15 million at the start of the window, and we were, sort of scratching our heads saying, well, why aren't we just pulling the trigger? He needs to go, and they've held out, and they've ultimately got the money that they've been asking for all along. So fair play. He might well do well, but he's not going to be. He's not, in his current state. He's absolutely not going to succeed in the Premier League because he's just too much of a melt. He's just not physical enough. He whines, dives. I mean, he was even worse in Scotland than he was in the Premier League, which is saying something. He's just not cut out for Premier League or British football. We'll see how he gets on in pastures new.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, so he's played in Portugal, England, Belgium with Anderlecht, Netherlands with PSG, Scotland with Rangers, Las Palmas last season, now Germany. I mean, it's a lot of I was going to say a lot of miles under the clock in terms of where he's played, and I don't know, like part of me wants him to do well because he had all of it, and it's probably similar to what I was saying about Rodrigo Gomez, isn't it? It's like that. People are still going to say, when's he going to really, launch off? And Dortmund's been a bit of a place for a number of players to really kind of push on in their careers, but there's a bit of survivorship bias with Dortmund as well, and a lot of players just haven't worked out there. And I don't think it's a massive secret that he's got a terrible attitude. Like you speak to anybody and everybody, and he's just a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I was fully expecting he would get or he would hold out for a move to Spain, and it felt like this Dortmund deal was kind of dragged, and maybe his heart wasn't set on it. He wasn't set on Germany. He was very vocal about wanting to go back to play in Spain. He felt that suited him. I think for Wolves, for the number of bad sales we've done and bad purchases, of which he is right up there, it feels like a very good sale to have recouped that amount. And of all the players we've sold, he isn't. I almost don't consider him as a forward because he was never going to come back and play. I'd written that off. Completely written that off.
Literally, no one had considered him in terms of like, we're going to have to play hang up front, and like no one's going, maybe Silva. No one. And you're right, like, not to kind of get all, bogged down in the numbers, but what we signed him for 35 million 4 years ago. So it's about £8 million a year we outlaid on him, and we've sold him for best part of 25 million. Like we've made a loss on him, and I'm assuming we'd have got, loan fees from at least Las Palmas last season because it was a season-long one. But I wouldn't say we've broken even, but I think the club have got as much as they humanly can for him. And again, I feel they deserve a bit of credit for that somehow.
From a PSR perspective, we'll have booked a profit because all that initial transfer fee would have been taken off on his first set of contracts. So it will actually be booked. Whether we've ultimately made a profit overall is debatable, but certainly from this year's financials, we will have booked a profit, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
It's actually a successful loan move that we've had for once in forever, because we're awful at that. We're awful loaning out players, but this one's actually been a success. It's a strange feeling.
Yeah, like it in theory, sort of how it works is that we've flogged him out enough until someone's gone, he's good enough for us to actually buy permanently. And, it occasionally works. Having a quick look on Twitter, which is always a fun place to be. Earlier today, we were linked with the Nigerian striker from Gwent, Tolu Orokadare, I'm going to go for. Now, I kind of assumed that it was going to be a contingent on if we sell Strand Larsen. In the last sort of half an hour, it still seems like Wolves might go in for him, which I think would be a really interesting addition to the squad in terms of effectively a fit version of Sasha Klavnic, who's not going to break down. But I tell you what, if Wolves could, if Wolves could actually get another striker, I think the mood around Molineux is starting to really pick up.
Yeah, it feels like this, as you said, when you first saw the link, you thought, this, it's bad news, not good news, this, because it means something's happening with Larsen. But if it appears to be that this is in addition to Larsen, then actually you look at just focusing on strikers, then you've got, if this guy's an actual proper backup or somebody who can play with Larsen, you can play both, and you haven't got to flog Larsen every single week, because he did break down a couple of times. He had a few hamstring injuries, didn't he? And so we don't have to flog him, but we've had to flog other players in the past because we've got no one else as a backup. Again, it feels un-Wolves-like to sign a good player where you already have a good player, but that's not how other clubs work, and it should be how we work. You should have more than one good option, and he would be that. And we looked great the other night with two big men on, so I'll be all for it.
Could have three, Ali.
With Sasha on as well.
Yeah, that's it. Just go chaos football for the last 10 minutes.
Forget it. Just pump it.
You'll be delighted. Just lump it in the box.
just
old school.
Not even a right winger. We'll just have Bueno. Just an absolutely overload the back stick. Yeah. I'm all in.
6'4", 6'7", and 6'6". Or just going in. Just get some grenades. Just lob it in. See what happens.
I mean, genuinely, to be fair, I do like I do like Sasha Kladnic from a human element. not necessarily, and he's never kind of played god awful for Wolves. But it is refreshing to kind of see Wolves go. Let's see actually if we can improve, and hell, maybe use some of that Fabio Silva money, and some of the extra players. So yeah, I'm curious to see how it's gonna pan out with what have we got, 4 more days left of transfer window, close end Monday, I think. We'll, I guess, see how it goes. But nice to bring stuff onto the game of the weekend, fellas, because we've got Everton. And again, I think if you'd have asked me after the Bournemouth game, I wouldn't say I was worried about playing Everton, but I was just worried about Wolves playing football. Whereas now, I don't know, it feels weird to be optimistic again.
It's the hope that kills you, mate.
Yeah, I'm massively. I'm going to, come 5 p.m. Saturday, it's going to be a completely different story. But I don't know. Everton intrigue me as a team because they're a bit in a similar situation to Wolves in terms of, trying to break in, up into the top half of the league this season. They've obviously brought Grealish in. But even with their brand spanking new stadium, it feels a little bit same old with them.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who spends their life surrounded by a lot of Everton fans, I've like you, I watched their first game against Leeds and thought they are in trouble in the same way that we are. They are, you looked at the lineup, Michael Keane's still in there. He's not a good centre half. They hadn't got any wing backs at all. They're playing a centre mid at left back, a centre back at right back. They looked poor. They played poor, and they got beat. And you thought they are, they're in that mix of clubs, sort of in the bottom half of the table where they could easily get dragged into it. Despite what a lot of Everton fans will tell you. And then obviously last week they had their win against Brighton, which I think many people saw coming, other than Everton, other than fans of Everton. But even some of the most, staunch Everton fans will admit they were fairly fortunate in that game. They gave up a lot of chances, and on another day, Brighton would have won that quite comfortably. All of that being said, after our game, and you look at sort of Everton's front line, it feels like a game where both teams will feel like they can hurt the other. If, Grealish and Dye, Dewsbury Hall, Tyler Dibbling, if he plays, I suspect they would all fancy playing against the way we've defended so far. They will be fairly confident coming into it on the back of a win and winning in the week as well. And after the Bournemouth game, it feels massive for us. It feels like a massive game because we've lost the first 2. They've sort of got their first win under the belt, so they've kind of they've got off and running. It feels massive for us already if we were going 6 points behind a team like Everton. I do feel slightly more optimistic after the week, and it feels like there is some cause for optimism, but you just don't want them to. It feels ridiculous to get your hopes up after just beating West Ham because they are equally as bad. And you know what Grealish could do, and he'll be relishing coming to Molineux and trying to upset the crowd. But it should be a game that we should not be losing. Put it that way. I'm not convinced Everton are that good a side, but I think they will be quite effective under Moyes. They will play to their strengths, and I'm not sure how that plays against our defence at the moment. But I would like to think we should be able to hurt them if we, with Andre, if he plays Andre and Gomez, and if Arias can, in the second half, Arias, not the first half, Arias from the other night, Larsen starting, you feel like it's a huge game. And if we can carry on the momentum from that second half, not concede early, just don't concede an early goal, and then we've got every chance of getting something.
I think you're right. I think how we set up, and Aris is a really interesting player, because I think that West Ham game, I think, really showed everyone what he's about, and frankly, sticking him out on the wing isn't where he's going to thrive in a Wolves top. He's going to need to be in the centre, and it might take a little bit of a formation shift, and maybe, you know, why we're looking to maybe bring in another striker who's maybe a little bit more mobile than Kalinic, but still has that physical presence up front, and having someone who can kind of really work between the lines a little bit more, because the last thing, you know, Everton under Moyes, I mean, he did it when he was at West Ham as well, and all his careers, he makes his teams very functional and hard-working, and I guess all the other cliches. And it's just whether Wolves try and, I guess, play their game or get sucked into the opposition's tactics. And I think you're right, it feels not that it's a can't lose game, but one where we really need to be setting out a marker to sort of show what type of team we are this season.
I think it's the intensity at the start is going to be important for us. We've got to start and get the fans behind the team by starting with a tempo and a pace. That's what disrupted West Ham in the second half. That's what we need to do on Saturday. We've got to start on the front foot, aggressive, winning the balls, and really setting a marker out for the first 10 or 15 minutes, not trying to play our way in and play. We've got to really start with an intensity, and I think that for me will be key. As you say, Ali, we can't concede early again. That's just going to just puts us on the back foot. We've got to get on the front foot, get the intensity, and get it moving forward. And I think if we do that and we get at them, then I think we'll have the joy. If we give them time to settle in and adopt their approach, then we're going to get dragged into that.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't going to be a game for neutrals, is it? Let's be honest. On Saturday is, I think, the easiest way. Like, unless Wolves really decide to light it up, I don't think it's going to be a spectacular game. But at the same time, I don't know, it might be that opportunity to really push on, and that no one's really started the season all too well, and you know, we don't want to be kind of going into September with no points on the table. But if we got a win, I think everyone would sort of feel a bit comfortable in terms of, okay, well, basically most of the teams have either, you know, might have lost one, but they've won one, and you kind of get a little bit of momentum or a little bit of a fear, to be honest, kind of going away if you get a win, because otherwise it's going to keep carrying on, and that's when, you know, people like us get on their backs, and it's hard to move past that, especially as it, you know, looping back to transfers. It's really frustrating that our team in particular, we like to do our transfers quite late on in the window rather than getting it all done and dusted. So, you know, people like Krejci have got a full pre-season with us. You know, if we're looking at, you know, to suddenly decide we need another striker, and it happens, you know, 2 days before window. It's like, we've already played 4 pre-season matches, 2 league games, and a cup match, when they could have actually had an impact in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think momentum is massive for this Wolves team more than anything, really. We've seen what happens when you get either in a good vein or a bad vein of form. I mean, we know about August folks and just write it off. We just have to come to accept that. But you know, we saw it up in the start of last season. It just snowballed and snowballed. And then Vitor came in. We get three wins on the bounce to the Or. At least got 7 points, I think, out of his first 9. Then we went on another spell, I think, where we didn't win for about 6 games or something, getting tetchy again. And then we went on that run where we won 6 in a row. It's massive for us, momentum. And we really, like I say, you've got to get your first 3 points on the board as quick as you can, I think, and then go from there. And I think if you get, you know, you win at the weekend, you get a couple of new signings coming in, your star strikers, signed up basically for the season. Gets the fans back on side, the momentum builds a little bit more. Vitor's back on the points, and everyone's happy.
That's all we can ask for. So long as we're seeing Vitor back on the points, then we know things are going well, don't we? But not to look sort of super far ahead, but after this game we've got the international break, and then league-wise it's Newcastle at home, Leeds away, Spurs away, and Brighton at home. And again, there's no easy games in this league, but Spurs away at the moment's not going to be fun. Having Brighton, you say, yeah, we can probably write that one off. It's we need to get points on the board where we can, and I think that's a frustrating thing for me about Bournemouth, is that Bournemouth deserved to win. No question about it, but it was a shame how kind of easy we made it in a game where I think on paper we've gone, if we just got a draw in that and just showed that bit of resilience, it shows that different side to Wolves. I guess sort of wrap up, fellas, then. Score predictions. Greg, how do you think the game's going to play out on Saturday?
I think it's going to be a score draw, 1-1 or 2-2. I want us to win, but I think it's just going to play out like that. I've just got this feeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How about you, Tom?
I was thinking 1-1, but I'll stick my neck out a little bit, and I think maybe 2-1, scrape a 2-1 win.
How about you, Ali?
Yeah, I'm with Tom. I just can't see us keeping a clean sheet, is the fear. At the moment, I'd love it if we could, but yeah, I'd probably lean to 1-1.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet, but I can't really see Everton keeping one either. I'll stick my neck out and go for a 2-1 win as well. Strand Larsen scoring the winner, kissing the badge. All we can ask for. We will be back on Sunday, though, guys, to review the game. Big thanks to everyone who's watched live or listened back. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you're following us on all the social media stuff, via Wolves, Lols, and Trolls. They're all down there in the description. If you're not doing so already, we are playing in a charity tournament for raising funds for Wolves Foundation. So we're competing in the Content Creators Cup. So it'll be a really fun day, weekend after next year on the international break, where we get to play against the likes of Talking Wolves, Always Wolves. I'm now going to forget literally everyone else and go, oh, you don't remember us, and no, simply everyone else has gone out my head. But anyway, I'll include the link as well. Wolves Foundation do some amazing work in the city, and any money raised from goes to a fantastic cause as well. But until next time, it's goodbye from Greg.
Cheers, guys.
It's goodbye from Tom.
See you, Wolves fans.
It's goodbye from Ali.
Bye, chaps.
And it's goodbye from me. And I'll leave you with this, guys.
Clubs come on, and then Strand Larsen. You can't sell him, can you? Strand Larsen, whoa! Strand Larsen, whoa! If you're Newcastle, you ain't having. You're not going to buy him off it. No.